What's up, everybody? Noble Comics here to talk about the problem with Miles Morales. Now, this has been a kind of hot topic ever since the character got really popular from the Spider-Verse movies about Miles Morales himself and kind of what goes right and what goes wrong with his character, specifically calling him Spider-Man. You'll notice there is kind of an online discourse of whether you should call him Spider-Man or you should just call him Miles Morales. I see a lot of people say Peter Parker is Spider-Man, Miles Morales is Miles Morales. And that definitely is a problem with the character. What do you do about it? What should have been done about it? Where does the character go forward from here? Now, I do just want to get out there from the very beginning. This has nothing to do with Miles Morales being black, half Mexican. I don't care. The problem is with Miles Morales taking the mantle of Spider-Man and putting that into main 616 continuity. Because as an Ultimate Spider-Man in a different universe, that makes total sense. But when you try and put him next to like Peter Parker, that doesn't make sense. And it's not just Miles Morales who has this problem. Like X-23, they're now trying to call Wolverine. Same thing with Kate Bishop, they're calling Hawkeye. Same thing with, not anymore, but at the time, right? Jane Foster was called Thor. And it's like, I get what you're trying to do, but it's also like not working. And this whole thing doesn't work, I think, for two main reasons. One is these characters do have sort of a mantle thing about them, like I'm passing the mantle down, the title down. Thor doesn't. That's just his name, so you can't just call yourself Thor. But for most of them, like there can be another Wolverine if he's passing the mantle down and he's leaving. The problem is that none of these characters are leaving. They want to have Logan Wolverine and X-23 Wolverine around at the same time, which is just confusing. And it's like weird that the OG members have to like self-flagellate and hype up their replacements even though they're not actually being replaced. And they have to like lower themselves and be like, well, she's an even better Wolverine than I am, which is always just a stupid thing to do whenever something like this comes up. But the passing the mantle thing, if you're going to do that, you actually have to pass the mantle. If you want Wolverine to go away, take like 2 years, give him a good final storyline, and let him go away. That's fine if you want to do that. And then you have another storyline of X-23 becoming worthy of that title of Wolverine and becoming Wolverine. You don't just hand this to people. Again, unless you want to do like it's an alternate Earth, then you have a lot more room to play around in. But in the main continuity, people like the characters that they like, right? We've been reading Wolverine for decades. We've been reading Spider-Man for decades. We don't just want to see somebody else hop in and be like, I'm popular now. You're going to like me because I'm the new one and forget about the old one. Like, people don't like that. They like what they like. The second reason that this doesn't really work is because you're kneecapping the new characters from the very beginning because you're confining them to be this thing that already exists. Like with Miles Morales, is now he is stuck being Spider-Man when he could have been something else. You could have given him a different name, something else that removes him from being Spider-Man, and you can even keep the same powers, you can keep it spider-themed, whatever. But now he is like pigeonholed into Spider-Man. He is now forever going to be compared to Peter Parker, who's got decades of additional continuity and storylines on him, to where it's like, you can't live up to that, both like in universe, in the actual like Marvel universe, but in our world, the real world, that character can't live up to it. And across the board, none of them have. None of them have storylines like the originals had. There's no Miles Morales Spider-Man storyline that's as good as the Peter Parker ones. There's no Miles Morales villains that are as good as Peter Parker's villains. A lot of the times, Miles Morales just has to like borrow villains from Peter Parker because they haven't built up their own character as Miles Morales. They just took a mantle from a different character, applied it to him, and was like, hey, this is popular now. Now, the Spider-Verse stuff I know is popular. I like those movies well enough, but you do have to understand if you just know Miles Morales from those movies, the comics are very different. The comic character is not the same. He's much less popular. He's quite different. Um, if you like the movies, I'd say watch the movies. Probably don't read the comics because it's not going to translate well. And I almost want to say like that's not an accident, right? The fact that this isn't working well because The whole thing seems like it is a short-term cash grab type of thing, right? Whether that's, Jane Foster Thor or whichever one of these like replacements that they put in, which are all usually like a diversity replacement. I will say it's like a woman or a person of color or something like that, which is weird to say the least. But it's also, again, if you're thinking like, I want to make a diverse new superhero, I want to be a light for the darkness of all these other minorities and women and stuff like that. It's like, if that's your actual goal, I don't think you would just say, hey, let's take this white guy comic and we're just going to make a worse version with a token character. Like, that's probably not how you go about that. And it seems like for a lot of these characters, that was the idea, which is like, hey, we're going to shake things up a little bit. We're going to take X white male hero, replace them with X diversity hero. Yeah, hell, give them the same name. I mean, it's setting them up for failure. And you could probably look at me and say, are you crazy to say that Miles Morales has been a failure? He's had, again, these successful movies. He's had a successful game. People seem to like him. And it's like, people seem to like him everywhere except for the comic books. And for the reasons that I've stated before, is you cannot have this successful character stand out and be unique and be something greater than what it started out as, right? Because we're bottlenecking this from the beginning by saying you're Spider-Man now, or you're Thor, or you're Wolverine, or you're Hawkeye, or you're Captain America, or you're whoever. Because again, now they have to live up to the past and what people like, and now they can't really have like their own little niche. They can't have like their own villain set and storylines and things like that because they're not really a whole new, original, or unique character. Which I feel like if you really cared about the character and you really cared about telling these stories, you would do something original. You would do something unique. You wouldn't try and piggyback off of the success of other people. And look, you know as well as I do that these characters do get hated on quite a bit. And some of it's justified, some of it's not justified, right? Some people just hate the character because it's not Peter Parker. They hate the character just because it's not Thor. But a lot of it is justified because the storytelling is usually worse. It's clearly not trying to tell a story of a new character. It's trying to tell a story of like, I'm Thor, but different. I'm better than what he was, right? Not trying to tell a story, more trying to make a statement. And I'm not saying that Miles Morales is like that. Maybe at one point he was, but he's definitely probably the best of all these that I've mentioned. He's probably the most well-rounded and unique character. But he's still sort of trapped now as Spider-Man, and I don't really know what you're supposed to do about that, because I think his character would benefit. They really should have done it a few years ago. They still have a chance. If they change his name and they make him something unique and different so that we can have Peter Parker Spider-Man and we can have Miles Morales Spider-Person, whatever he wants his name to be, so that he can be unburdened by, the name that he's been given, unburdened by the different expectations and opinions and comparisons, and he can really just flourish as his own character with his own villains and everything like that. I think that would be beneficial. And maybe if they could just do that at the end of like the Spider-Verse trilogy, because again, that's where he's the most popular, where he's like, look, I was never meant to be Spider-Man, and that's fine. I won't be. I'm X. I'm different. I'm not like the rest of you. Which I think would be very positive for the character. But those are just my thoughts. I know this isn't not exactly the first time this conversation has come up, but it has been on my mind. Let me know what you guys think about Miles Morales, about the points that I brought up here. Do you think it's a good thing that he has kind of piggybacked on Spider-Man? Do you think it's been hurting his character? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.